Happy New Year and welcome to the Digital Lounge, where we deep dive into the ever-evolving world of technology and the people that drive it. I'm your host, Mark Britton, and today we have a very special episode as we unpack the insights from Crimson's 2024 IT salary survey. It's a new year, a new start. Perhaps you're looking for a new job in IT, or perhaps you're a hiring manager and you want to understand where the market is at the moment. If that's the case, this is the show for you. Welcome to the Digital Lounge. Gosh, it's already the 11th of January. So what exactly is the IT salary survey? Well, it's available to download from Crimson's website. We've run this salary survey for probably 5-7 years now. There you'll find over 40 IT job titles, including contractor rates, giving you a pulse on the IT jobs market. The report draws on live placements and client data, and there's a wealth of information for both candidates and employers, covering everything from retention strategies to crafting that perfect CV. Today, we are fortunate enough to have two seasoned IT recruiters with us, authors of the report, and we're going to sort of jump into some of the details of that. So I'd like to welcome Paul Davis, Lou Clarke. Hi, both. Welcome to Digital Lounge. How you doing, both?
Good morning. Very well, thank you.
Morning. And Paul joins us for the first time on the Digital Lounge. And in fact, I'm just going to change the view for those that are watching live. There we go. That's better. Yes, Paul, and some great news for you. You've just got yourself engaged. You're over in New York.
I have indeed. Yeah, I thought this next half an hour we could just talk about that, Mark, if that's
I
okay
think that's
with you.
a good idea. And you on bended knee in Central Park, was it?
Yes, thanks for. You didn't tell me you were going to mention this, Mark, but I do appreciate it. But yeah,
congratulations, Paul.
Yeah,
all went well,
congratulations.
fortunately.
Congratulations to you both. Well, as you say, we've only got half an hour, or probably just a little less than that, and we have got people joining us live on the show today. So if you've got any questions for the team, feel free to put them in the comments. We'll try and address those as we go. So, Lou, if I can turn to you first of all. I suppose looking at the report, very loads of detail there. I mean, what were some of the trends you saw in 2023? How do you think this year is going to go with the IT jobs market? What do you think is going to be a little bit different?
Yeah, and you're right. There was a lot going on, so we won't obviously cover everything, and obviously people can download, like you say. But I think for myself, the highlights were. I suppose, obviously, over the last few years, the pandemic, we saw quite a candidate-driven market, with a bit of a hike, if you like, in terms of hiring and salaries, and people knee-jerking and panic buying a little bit, if I'm completely honest, as well as there being, significant change within lots of organisations. But I must admit, I think we saw a little bit of a slowdown last year, definitely in the permanent side of things. I think companies becoming much more hesitant to make permanent plans without necessarily having truly defined programs of work ahead of them. So a little bit apprehensive, and it very much became more of a buyer's market towards the end of last year. Still some really hard to find scarce skills, but by no means the types that we experienced sort of pre and during the early stages of the pandemic. And we've really started to see that sort of skills shortage sort of slowing down a little bit. That said, there were clearly quite a few key skills which we still see as kind of the really hard to find tech talent, and the ones that we've seen a bit of an increase in demand for, where businesses are obviously really struggling to, but possibly to retain, but also to recruit, such as cloud computing, data analytics, enterprise and solutions architecture, tech architecture, etc., very much kind of still high up. But overall, we definitely saw that skills shortage slowly diminish and kind of go back to those pre-pandemic levels.
Okay, and Paul, I mean, you work specifically in the IT contractor space, and I know it can be a very different approach, a different type of market. What's it been like over the past year, and what are you hearing for 24?
Yeah, no, it's a strange year. I think, to sum it up in a couple of words, a very odd year, in the sense that I probably will be a little bit of a hypocrite as I answer this, because Crimson are profitable. Crimson have had a good year. We've worked with some fantastic programs of work with some fantastic contractors and clients alike. However, it has been tough, and it completely depends on which industry that you're recruiting for. what challenges they have, what worldly factors are going on, which impact that, unfortunately. So there are wins and there are winners and there are losers. And what we've found, and why I mentioned I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite, is because yes, we've been profitable, but we are working with very, very good contractors out there and candidates in general, which are struggling, and it's a tough market. It's a candidate heavy market with limited roles, I would probably say, but on the basis that our ethos is that good candidates will always find good roles. So for us, it's all around kind of keeping the education around don't beat yourself up, keep on that hunt and keep moving forward, really, because it's not a you thing, it's a market thing. The key drawback that we've seen, that we will see moving forward, is that IT will be part of the boardroom decision making moving forward. You have to invest in your IT if you are a modern forward thinking company still. So that's one thing which we're trying to educate as we go along. But yeah, 2024 will hopefully see a bit of an upturn in activity. But like I say, it's a difficult one to answer sometimes.
Flexibility was definitely the key thing there, wasn't it, Paul, last year? And the hiring community really needed and wanted that flexibility, and that contract piece does do that. I think we slightly bucked the trend here at Crimson with some significant programs of work we were working on, which we're really proud of, and supported our customers with. It was a difficult market out there, but I agree. I think that market just showed there was lots of change, but quality contractors, flexible working, urgency, speed to market, and obviously being able to maintain a really strong network was all what Paul and his team were able to achieve.
Right. Yeah, and I think as we've seen, there is the possibility of a very light recession this year. I think we've heard from the sort of the economic reports, and as you say, employers have to do everything to attract that cream. Louise, if I may ask, how do you think employers could improve those job adverts, stand out from the crowd, and attract that top talent?
Yeah, well, candidate expectations last year we saw remain high, despite the fact that it was more of a buyer's market and candidates had less of the options. They still have very high expectations, and just to highlight, the cost of living, inflation, etc., candidates still want that flexibility, and they do want to see opportunities with hybrid working, etc. So employers have got to be thinking about that in terms of actually attracting good talent. Obviously, there's the classic advertising routes, and we've got lots of social media streams now, as well as the network of opportunities from a sort of attraction perspective that consultancies do offer. But a good employer looking to hire someone has really got to, if they're writing a job advert, for example, just to give some hints and tips there, they've really got to standardize that structure. They've really got to specify location, whether it's an in-office, remote, hybrid working role. Be bold to be open with that information rather than keep it closed doors and a little bit of a guessing game, because candidates will be put off if they're not clear on what they're applying for and how flexible that opportunity is. Job titles still remain important. There are lots of different variations of the same type of work out there, and people like to call things different things, sometimes because of internal branding rather than necessarily what the market's paying. And keeping conventional job titles clear within job adverts is really important to make sure that your searches are going to get the best return. Keep it articulate, keep it succinct, and include a salary range if you're able to, because that will again attract the right level and the right breadth of candidate. And don't be afraid to sort of keep that as a range if necessary, because you can look to attract sort of people looking to take that step up, as well as those that are looking for a similar fit. Obviously, diversity and inclusion is really important for organisations, not just in terms of attracting candidates, but obviously retaining candidates once they've joined, and existing members of their team. So making sure that inclusive language is really, really prevalent within that advert, consistent style backed up with lots of further correspondence is absolutely essential. And there's lots of hints and tips and tools out there to help organisations with regards to gender language that you can use, and masculine and feminine words can attract or detract from an advert. So having a blend of those and a real strong mix is really important to making sure you're writing an effective advert, and calling out things like your culture and your benefits, and being very proud of what you stand for in an organisation, and really understanding what you're representing to the open market is again really important. And as long as that's continued as part of that interview and onboarding process, then you should be able to attract good candidates. Just a few hints from me there.
Fantastic. Loads there. That's fantastic. And just we've got it on the screen at the moment, but for people listening to the podcast, if they do want to download the salary survey, we've got a bit.ly link. So that's bit.ly/IT salary 24. IT salary 24, and that's all lowercase. You can download that. Just a quick plug for the digital leadership report as well, because Louise touched on things like hybrid working and how that's helped with diversity. We talked about that on a previous show. So if you jump on our website, crimson.co.uk, you can download that as well and just gem up on some of those details too. We have had a comment from Dubai.
Yes, we can come and see you. No problem. We'll be there next week.
We'll get a flight out, Mark, to answer this one.
There's a cold snap next week, so we'll get straight over there.
Yes, I think that would be. I think we should all jump on that plane. I'm going to get this name wrong, so I think it's Shubhan Kari, asking how's the market of data science in Dubai. It's not a market we work in, unfortunately, so I don't think we've got any insight there. The report is very much focused on the UK IT market. Perhaps some of our colleagues within our group might be able to help there. I'm not sure. We'll check that out.
Yeah, I have some previous colleagues as well. I've worked with them, industry experts that I could actually introduce and recommend to our colleague there on that call. So I've got someone who's just literally moved out to Dubai to work within the finance and business change area, as well as obviously members of the group. So more than happy to make an introduction there.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll move on. So Paul, we've talked about that candidate experience, and we know how important it is to keep candidates engaged through that process. For organizations looking to hire, could you provide some examples of the application, interviewing, or onboarding process that they should be considering?
No, absolutely. And I think Louise made some great points as well, just around the engagement end to end. And I think as an employer wanting to get the best talent, and which is a bit of a false statement really, because of course you want the best talent. Why wouldn't you? So everyone out there, unfortunately for you, if you are trying to attract a niche talent or niche skill set, is looking for that top 10%, that top 1% of individuals. So if you think you're special, you're not. So what can you do to combat that ultimately? What can you scream and shout about? The best advice I've ever had and I've ever given, I'd like to think, is just keep it simple and don't be afraid to not sugarcoat things. Give people an honest verdict of what working at XYZ Limited is actually like, because it's not only about the attraction piece, it's about the retention piece. So have an honest view of what a day-to-day looks like. Have not only the HR individual and the line manager having that conversation, but have actual real people who have either done that job before or are in that and working at that company, just to give a different perspective. Authenticity is absolutely vital. You cannot go around the houses and kind of hope that they don't find out certain elements of the role. Just like I say, be quite upfront and honest, be engaged. The classic cliche of no news is worse than bad news is absolutely true. We've all been there, whereby whether it's you're changing provider, whether it's Sky or BT, or you're going for a job, if you haven't heard where you stand as an individual, it just sets your gut off on the wrong tangent really. So be prepared to give honest feedback, be prepared to give regular feedback throughout the process, and more importantly, act quickly as well. Like I say, you're going after the top 10% of individuals. You need to keep engaged, you need to have speed, you need to have a plan that you stick to in some way, shape or form, end to end. So that means, if you say see feedback by the end of the week, you stick into that as best as you can, because as much as you've got your own world going on as the employer, the candidate is banking on that coming through. So if there is a delay, just communicate. Over communicate is worse than under communicating. Lou touched upon counter offers as well. We are in a market whereby, even though there is a not necessarily a recession. There's a slight downturn currently, but good candidates, like I say, will always have multiple offers or at least information around other opportunities going on. So be prepared once you've found that right person. Be prepared that they will be counter offered. It's a good thing, and it's obviously a negative thing as well, because it ultimately tells me that they are a good candidate and they're worth kind of engaging with. But they may just need some coaching and education around how to have that tricky, emotional sometimes conversation with their employer, and really make them understand why the original reasons why they were obviously looking to make that leap. So yeah, a lot of hints and tips you can kind of help them on the way, but more importantly, just be authentic to what your destination, what your vision is as a business. Be engaged and act quickly is my biggest advice.
Yeah, and I mean, we live in a world with the likes of Glassdoor, where you can see the review, you can get that honest opinion of people that work there. Sometimes it's a little bit skewed, a bit like Amazon reviews or anywhere else, but yeah, we live in that transparent world. But yeah, so it sounds like the big takeaway there is communication and act quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And we also live in a world whereby if you want something from Amazon, whatever it is, you can get it tomorrow. Everything is instantaneous, so that kind of mantra is tucked into so many different avenues of life.
Yeah, and I think just to add as well, be respectful of people's time, because the pandemic has given everyone even more insight into how valuable our working and home balance is. And, people have to often take time off work to attend interviews or get themselves in a really good environment to be able to conduct a video interview, for example. And sometimes we see organizations very underprepared when they go into that interview process. And, it's really important to be really clear on what the message is, how you're going to be interviewing those individuals, and make sure you're organized as an organization, because like Paul said, time does kill opportunities for employers if they take too long over things. Most definitely, you've got to make it a quick process, but you've got to make it a thorough process without dragging it out unnecessarily because of your bad organization, so to speak. So that's really important. And we've seen a notable trend, as I said, for the market to sort of not flatline necessarily, but will be quite comparable to last year, if not pre-pandemic levels, in terms of the salary levels of what customers are going to have to pay. But those high-performing talents, those high-performing employees, will most definitely need to be rewarded, and organisations need to be mindful of how they're measuring success within their own organisations in order to benchmark new candidates coming in the right way, and without therefore upsetting the existing place as well. So it's a real fine line between being organised, getting your details and facts right, bringing the best talent in, like Paul said, as quickly as possible, whilst also ensuring that you're measuring that talent as effectively as possible. Otherwise, you may start to cause more internal problems, which we can help with in terms of addressing talent gaps and that kind of thing.
Okay, so we've touched on retention there and counter offers. So let's drill into that, if I may, Louise. What do you see as some of the basics organisations should be doing to protect that talent in this kind of environment?
Yeah, it's not an easy task, as we know. People do move on, and no one's no one's not replaceable, so to speak. But I think lots of organisations that we work with that continue to have quite a strong, healthy culture and have a good, longevity with regards to the retention of their employees, is often that they have that people first sort of policy and mentality within their organization. They actively look to develop their people. They have very clear personal development plans. They have very clear objectives set alongside how they review and look to further develop people's skills within the organization. And these are all things that people coming into a new role will want to see, obviously, as well, demonstrated. Celebrating success, really having a sense of purpose and value as an organization is massively important to candidates coming into a new role, as well as obviously those that you're looking to retain. We ourselves work with Best Companies, an industry accredited association who really helps organizations really analyze and get really strong feedback, anonymous feedback from their employee base to actually further increase and continuously improve upon how we are as a business. And there's lots of UK customers who do exactly that. It's worth looking at things like that to really help you as an organization call out those areas that you can be looking to develop. Having regular check-ins with people, doing the obvious interpersonal feedback, especially when people leave, make sure that there's an exit interview, one that they can feel that they are able to share their feedback and their experience of an organization. They might be leaving, but that doesn't mean it ends there, right? You may obviously have that person return at some point in the future if you obviously work with them really closely, and they've had a really great experience. It might just be that it's a good time for them to move on somewhere else, but also learn from their feedback, learn from their feedback around your induction process, about how you kept employees engaged in their personal development plans, etc., etc. And obviously, really celebrate success at all times if you can, because I think organisations are often always looking forward, which is absolutely brilliant, but we've got to also enjoy the moment. So
yeah, and I think you touched on that about sort of giving back as well. A company
yeah,
that can do that. I mean, we don't all work for organisations that
no,
are charities that have
no,
got a very clear social purpose. And I know
yeah.
for some people that's really important. But if you're not that kind of organisation, what kind of things should an organisation be thinking about?
And it's exactly that, one of the big things, especially the Gen Z generation now, we've noticed, yes, they want the money and yes, they want the salary, but that isn't actually the most important thing for them. They want to work with an organization where there is that sense of purpose, where they can see that career development quite fluidly, and quite quickly. And if you don't address those things, you will often miss out on good talent. And obviously the opportunity to have some mentoring schemes within your business. If you've got people who have been within your business for a long time, they also need to feel that they're adding value to the newer generation coming through, and actually creating a coaching, mentoring type environment is actually really healthy for all parties. So just some little thoughts on that.
Wonderful. Okay, Paul. So if I'm thinking about my next role in IT, what kind of things should I be thinking about this year? And I'm thinking about contractors as well. Are there any tips that you can share for
Absolutely.
people that are thinking about sort of getting ready to go out into that market and find that next role?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's several obvious things, and several things that are, I suppose, kind of behaviour driven as well. If you haven't, fortunately haven't been in the market for that long, and or just purely because your network's taken you to different places, so therefore you haven't had to update your CV or kind of worry or stress too much about where the next paycheck's coming from. It can just leave you a little bit, I don't know, undereducated, I suppose, as to where the market is now, as opposed to maybe 5-6 years ago when you were on the market. It has evolved quite quickly and quite rapidly alongside the tech that's now involved in any job search. I think probably the best place to start is again just don't overthink it, and sometimes, and 99% of the time actually, for that matter of fact, it's a timing piece. So don't beat yourself up if you haven't got a job within 24 hours is my best part of advice. Yes, it's easy for us to say from this side of the fence when we're trying to help you, but don't overthink it, don't overanalyze. And if you have got a job within 24 hours, great, but also don't knee jerk just at the first opportunity. I think just stripping it right back before you start to do anything, and that's writing your CV or anything along those lines. Just really write down, a bit old school, but a pros and cons list of what you will accept and what you won't, and that could be anything from salary, from perks, from location, from type of tech that you're getting involved in, type of destination that you want, and that's across permanent and contract opportunities as well. Because the last thing that you want is, for example, hypothetically, you've just been made redundant, and you've got a good 3-4 months before you need to kind of ultimately get cash coming through the door. The last thing you want is to be 3 months into a role that you're either not engaged with, had to take at that point, because you're going to find yourself in a worse position ultimately. But yeah, write that pros and cons list is my advice. Have a good idea of what your own personal destination needs to be, and try and marry that up with company values that you're going forward for. Ask questions not only around kind of salary and perks, but ask questions around just they're almost, you want to lift the lid on their moral standards and their kind of their overall company strategy as well, because by asking those questions ultimately tells your future employer that, you know, there's more than just the kind of the money coming through the door. There's your own personal values, and if you can marry that up, then absolutely great. Personal brand as well. It can be sometimes a little bit of a scary thing for people who aren't necessarily, you know, an extroverted person or
social media savvy.
Yeah, and you don't have to be, you know, you don't have to be the next YouTube sensation. That's not what we mean necessarily by personal brand. It's almost just making sure that whatever you're putting out there, whether that's on your CV or on your LinkedIn, it's authentic to you. And there's a lot of CV branding experts out there where you can share your CV to. Ultimately, my advice is, if you are comfortable with what you're presenting and what you're sitting in front of, you know, Joe Bloggs, your next employer, that's good enough, because there's no science behind a CV, and one CV may be great for someone and awful for the other person. As long as you are comfortable with that, then that's great. Networking is huge. Networking around us as recruiters, as you know, LinkedIn, you know, cold leads, so to speak, people that you don't necessarily know. But more importantly, your own personal network, you know, whether it's past employers, past colleagues that you've worked with that have moved on to somewhere else. It's a little bit of a British thing not to want to put yourself out there, I feel sometimes. But don't be afraid to ask that question. As much as you think it's causing them a headache by asking them, you're probably solving them a headache if they've got a role internally and that they can recommend you for. So always don't be scared. It's not a defeatism thing to ask for help. It's not at all. And in reality, you may be solving someone else a bit of a problem, really. But other than that, keep yourself relevant. Keep yourself, you know, what's coming over the hill. Sessions like this, log into, reach out to consultants. Keep listening to podcasts. Keep understanding what the next certification coming through. Keep yourself relevant with what's going on in the market, really. But a lot of it is to do with timing and about not knee jerking into the role because it's there, and really kind of holding your ground to some respect.
Agreed. Just to add to what Paul just said there, from an employer's perspective as well, you know, that need to be flexible in their hiring approach is really important. You know, you shouldn't necessarily drop your standards in terms of what you're looking for, but actually the old-fashioned sort of recruiting type people isn't always going to really stand you in good stead to ensure that diversification of an organization and your culture evolves, etc. And to Paul's point, you know, candidates will be more picky. They will be really looking to aspire to what they really, really do want. Yes, that you know, there's a needs and must sometimes, but to Paul's point, you know, there are good organizations out there and there's plenty of good candidates. And I think if organizations really want to attract the best candidates, they really do have to show that versatility and innovation of thought, and just not being afraid to step outside their own comfort zone with regards to what they have traditionally recruited in the past, and show that they're a lot more open-minded now to sort of what and who they will look to engage with. So it goes full circle, really.
Yeah, fantastic. Great answers both. Thank you. Just a quick plug for us as well. Of course, we're a Microsoft Solutions partner. So as we've mentioned a few times, that a lot of this has been driven by that big transformation, that revolution, digital revolution that we're in. So, you know, if there are hiring managers, Louise, at the moment that are looking to hire, I'm assuming we can provide sort of a greater view of what they're looking to achieve.
Absolutely. You know, we can obviously share more in-depth detail than we have done on this half an hour, and really go into the data with the job salary survey. But more importantly, we can talk to them around their own organisation, challenges they've had in the past, future programmes of work that they've got coming up, and really help them build that people roadmap in terms of what they're going to need. And that often means looking obviously within the organisation themselves and actually thinking, right, who have we got? What talent do we have? What talent do we need to invest in? You know, who could we potentially upskill? And, you know, we could work with them to help bring people in to help upskill their existing employees rather than having to bring lots of new people in. But what that does allow is then for you to identify the actual gaps that you have within your organization. And we can obviously then help to go to our market and our network to help bring those resources in. And Paul and I are readily available to spend the whole of the next 3 months if we need to, just really helping organizations do exactly that.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we'll draw a line there if that's okay. It's always fantastic to have you on the show, Louise, and it's wonderful that
Thank
you've been able to
you.
join us as well, Paul, for the first time.
No,
And
pleasure, Mark. Absolute
congratulations
pleasure.
once again on the engagement. Hopefully we didn't embarrass you too much about that, but
No,
that's
thanks for the
wonderful
heads up
news.
that you were going to mention it as well.
I got you there. No, thank you
Kept you on
both
your toes.
very much, and great insight. Lovely to have some questions from the audience today as well. So thank you both. We'll leave it there and let you carry on and get on cracking with some of the clients that are asking lots of questions of you at the moment.
And happy to help anyone out there, like you say, looking for a new
Yeah.
role and giving them some advice on to how best to go about that, obviously. But yeah, thank you ever so much for your time, Mark, as well.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Well, there you go. So, of course, go to crimson.co.uk if you wish to get in contact with us, whether you're looking to hire or you want to submit your CV. Of course, we've got a live job board on there with loads of jobs there at the moment. And of course, just a reminder for our audio podcast listeners, if you want to download the IT salary report, that's bit.ly /IT salary 24. We don't have another web podcast scheduled at the moment, but we've got a few ideas coming up, so we'll get those posted as soon as possible. But what we do have is a webinar on the 1st of February. If you are heavily invested in Microsoft and you've got lots of licenses, chances are you might be not utilizing all of those licenses as best as you might. The next webinar will be all about that and how we can use tools to identify some cost savings. Perhaps you could reuse that money for another IT project elsewhere in your organization. That will be on the 1st of February. So look out for that, crimson.co.uk/events. That will be a live webinar with one of our partners. We'll also be touching on some of the licensing around Copilot as well, which is really new too. So there you have it. Thank you for joining the Digital Lounge. We'll be back again very soon.